Local officials say it's costing counties big bucks to take care of juveniles that have landed in the court system. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight at 10.
A recent overhaul to the Department of Health and Human Services may be making the question of who pays even more complicated. NTV's Sara Kirkley investigates in part one of a special report tonight. She joins us live from Grand Island. Sara, how much money are we talking about?
The short answer is no one really knows. In the past few months, I've been talking with county attorneys, sheriffs, probation officials, and clerks from Buffalo, Hall, and Adams counties. Because the cost of taking care of minors in trouble with the law is spread over so many departments and is often lumped in with adult costs, counties say it's hard to tell how much they're paying.
It's a trip Hall County deputies make on average 12 times a month.
High-paid chauffeurs.
Carting minors to juvenile facilities in Madison and Lincoln, both about 90 miles away.
We don't have any facilities close to us. Our average juvenile transport's pretty close to 5 hours. Kept busy with this stuff.
Captain Greg Ehlers says it cost Hall County more than $16,000 in man hours in the 2012-2013 fiscal year to do these type of transports. Minors made up more than 20% of prisoners deputies moved, and unlike adults, they can't be housed in a county jail.
If a juvenile is being brought back for a court hearing and then going to be returned, then the officer has to stay with them through court.
10 months into this past fiscal year, Hall County had spent about $9,500 in man hours transporting juveniles. But Ehlers says that's nothing compared to the cost of keeping minors in these facilities at about $240 a day.
The actual cost to the counties of paying these secure facilities to hold our juveniles is pretty much staggering, really.
Housing and fuel costs are picked up by Hall County Attorney Mark Young's office, which budgeted $140,000 for juvenile housing alone last year. But in the 3 months after LB 561 went into effect, Young says those costs went up.
Hall County spent $16,000 more for juvenile detention costs than we had in the same 3-month period in the preceding calendar year.
In the first 11 months of this past fiscal year, the county had already spent more than $137,000 for housing. But Young says the impact of this bill is not yet clear.
We're just starting to really understand how things are going to work, but unfortunately a lot of the provisions of the law have not really come into effect, and there are still a number of areas where really we're still kind of flying blind.
Tri-City officials are trying to get a clearer picture. Buffalo County's attorney tells me that they're now making a separate line item in the budget for these type of costs. Now, coming up tomorrow in part 2 of the special report, we'll look at what exactly LB 561 is and how it's changing costs and services in the area.
LB 561. Okay, thanks, Sara.
Tri-City officials worry changes to the juvenile justice system here in Nebraska could mean more costs for counties. Good evening. We thank you for joining us tonight at 10.
State departments are working to follow LB 561. That's a new law changing what happens to kids in Nebraska courts. NTV's Sara Kirkley has more now from our Grand Island newsroom with details in part 2 of her special report.
The bill passed last year, changing the way the state deals with juvenile delinquents, and it came with $14.5 million for new services and grants. State officials say it will help with rehabilitation and family participation, but at the county level, some are concerned.
We're just starting to really understand how things are going to work.
Hall County Attorney Mark Young says when it comes to changes made by LB 561, his office is at times flying blind. The bill ordered minors in the court system to be moved from the responsibility of the Department of Health and Human Services to probation.
HHS had a legal duty and a legal responsibility to pay for medical care, prescriptions, and could consent to treatment. There's still a very big issue about how far probation will go on doing any of that. And that's a cause for real concern.
State lawmakers hope to keep youth offenders at home instead of in detention centers. But Young sees another problem.
It is very difficult to find services, and some of the services that everybody I think would agree would be a good idea we just don't have. And as a local community, we can't afford.
Over the past 9 months, that's what we've been building. And we have seen an increase in the services that we have available.
Joseph Butnick's staff has doubled since the passing of LB 561. The probation budget for District 10 has grown too. Butnick says funds formerly used by DHHS are now funding his department.
We have not had any service that a youth needs that we have not been able to financially accommodate.
But Butnick says there's confusion on his end as well. Before, kids in the court system became wards of the state, not the case under probation, where they can't make decisions about minors' treatment.
We're still working with the parents and their guardians to make the decisions and appropriate placements for our youth to receive the services that they need.
But Young says until a judge makes his final ruling, the money to pay for those services still comes from the counties.
Although there is a provision in the law, unfortunately, it says that the county can still be looked to for payment if there's not other payment forthcoming. And that's something I'm very concerned about, and as an office we're trying to watch.
The Nebraska Juvenile Justice Association admits this transition hasn't been without its bumps. They're working now to clarify answers to questions that they think might be brought up in the upcoming legislative session. Tomorrow, we'll talk about what some say needs to be discussed then.
Well, as the state tries to treat juvenile delinquents closer to home, the transition has been bumpy for some. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight at 10.
Some say more changes will have to be made before the juvenile justice system works well here in Nebraska. Sara Kirkley has more from our Grand Island newsroom to conclude her special report on the issue tonight. Sara.
As probation takes over the Department of Health and Human Services role of caring for kids in the court system, there's been some confusion over who pays and who decides what services these minors receive. That's why some say discussion over LB 561 isn't over.
When troubled teens can hop in a car and be on the other side of the state in hours, Hall County Attorney Mark Young says it's Nebraska's problem.
We need to start looking at these issues with kids as state issues and not local issues, because they really aren't local issues anymore.
But with the passing of LB 561, state lawmakers are moving the state towards local treatment. Young says in his community and many others, the services aren't there yet, but he worries the costs will be, despite the state promising millions of dollars.
We had to put a lot of money into that, but it's going to take some time to really get it implemented and get the training done and get everybody out there and ready to go.
And there's a learning curve that goes along with that. We have to learn to work with Medicaid. We have to learn to work with Magellan.
Joseph Budnick's District 10 probation office is working to take over responsibilities once held by the Department of Health and Human Services. That also means taking over its Office of Juvenile Services budget.
And one of our frustrations was that we did not have funding in the past to help our youth with the services that they needed. This bill has provided us with that.
Lawmakers hope it will keep more kids out of the state's youth rehabilitation and treatment centers in Kearney and Geneva.
I think it's just a big mistake to say one size fits all and we're going to lock everybody up in this one facility. And if you talk to some people, they'll say that's really more dangerous than the state penitentiary because of some of the people that are there and the supervision issues.
But solutions for Central Nebraska law enforcement carting minors to more temporary detention centers in Lincoln and Madison aren't there.
It'd be nice for us to have a juvenile holding facility right here because it would be used.
Lawmakers say that's unlikely. Instead, counties are turning to technology and camera systems when the courts allow it to save trips and cost.
Our county judges have done a great job adopting new technology, and the court system as a whole has made some technology available.
Young says he and other county attorneys have talked with state lawmakers about their concerns over LB 561, and he says they'll likely be back this session to try to work out its problems.
All right, thank you, Sara Kirkley, for your special report.